muy malo. Roto el paso de vestuario. La interpretación siempre negativa. Siempre negativa. Nunca positiva.
Hello, welcome to Siempre Positivo as Barcelona completed the La Liga season at Spotify Camp Nou with their 19th win from 19 games, beating Real Betis 3-1 on a day which saw Robert Lewandowski say goodbye to the Barcelona crowd. One game to go, of course, against Valencia next weekend, but this was the send-off for Robert at Camp Nou, and it was a very emotional night in front of the Barca supporters for the Polish striker, and it even brought Toni Marti out of retirement and back to the stadium. I'm Sam Marsden. This is Siempre Positivo. Tony, back at Camp Nou for Lewandowski's send-off. Was it just for Robert?
Good morning. Yes, let's say yes. I thought that it was fair from me, going to his farewell after these 4 years. Let's say, now I can say it between us, that it's a player in a camp that helped me when I was journalist. I also helped them, I think. So it was fair to go there for the farewell. And I have to admit that it was emotional moment, because it's never easy, despite you can have, even if you have thousands of millions of euros in your bank, changing your life, with your kids, with your friends, with the kids of your friends that are working with you. Sometimes we don't realize what does it mean changing, starting from zero again, even if you have millions of euros. I'm not going to say that it's a drama. Of course, with money, everything is possible. But I want to say that also for these kind of people, it's never easy to leave a place. Feelings are for everybody, for rich people and for poor people. So it was emotional, because I also was in touch these last days with his camp, and it has not been easy period of time. It was the perfect excuse for me, Sam, Rik, to go for the first time in Camp Nou since it has been reopened.
What did you make of it?
To be honest, nothing. It's the same. No. It's exactly the same. No, I had no feeling like, oh wow. It's exactly the same. To be honest, I'm not saying that it's very ugly. I just say it's the same. It's the same. Okay, maybe some new seats or some new aisle in the stadium, but it's not impressed at all.
Oh, but this could be a good thing. This could be a good thing that it's the same, because so many stadiums, when they get remade or re-put somewhere else, they don't have the character and the feel of the old stadium, and for Barca to have a renewed Camp now when it's all finished, 3 tiers, I think it will look impressive, and I think from the outside it will look a lot better than the old Camp Nou did, and on the inside it will feel the same, and it will feel like Barca's
I think, from the outside it will start to look a little bit different. You're seeing some of the sort of, I don't know what you call them, but colour being added to the outside. Obviously before it was just basically a concrete bowl. But I think I've said what Tony said, maybe not as to the point, but basically it does feel very similar, which is not necessarily a negative point, like you say, Rik. It could be a positive. But obviously Lewandowski will not be returning when it is completely finished, certainly not as a Barca player. He's the big talking point. As Tony said, lots to talk about Lewandowski, really. Not just the moment of his departure, but the effect, the impact he's had on Barcelona during these last 4 years, both in terms of his goal scoring, 119 goals in 192 games for the club, the trophies he's helped them win in terms of 3 Ligas in 4 years, 3 Super Cups and a Copa del Rey. I think we can say there has been progress in Europe. If you think when he arrived, they'd just been dumped into the Europa League and also were in his first season, but also in terms of off the pitch, driving the standards in those first 6 months, certainly at the club, if not over the length of this time for the young players, the experience he sort of added to the dressing room, and the effort he made to come as well. Probably more of a talking point than Barca's 3-1 win over Betis. Just for some box ticking, I should check how you are, Rick. You okay?
Yeah, I'm good. That's my fault for jumping in to question Tony about his Camp Nou experience. But yeah, I'm good. I've got basically a weirdly empty calendar this week, and yet as much work as ever, or if not more, because I mean, slightly odd. I'm going to the Champions League final, which doesn't really make that much sense considering I cover Spanish football and there's no Spanish teams there. But that's just how the chips fell this year. So I've got a bunch of stuff about Arsenal and PSG to write.
Let's ignore Arsenal and PSG for now and focus back on Barca. And we'll get to Lewandowski. We'll just touch on the win over Betis. And I guess it's a little bit similar to Alaves in midweek on Patreon in terms of it's not really worth overanalyzing too much the performances of the players. I mean, the talking point is probably Rafinha coming in and playing well, scoring 2 goals, a free kick and the second goal. Good news for him in terms of the World Cup. Good news for Brazil. I guess good news for Barca in terms of it meant they won the game and ended the season with what La Liga say is a record. So I presume it's true of being the first team to complete the season of winning all 19 games. The reason I say I presume it's true because I'd read something a few weeks ago, which I've tried to find this morning and can't re-find now, so I don't know if I've invented it, which said something about years ago when there were less home games, there was a team that did it over, I don't know, whether it would have been 11 or 15 or a different amount of home games. I don't know if it's a record for the 19 games or if it's a record completely.
No, I also read that somewhere that it's a record for a 38 game season rather than just a complete record of a season.
In a 38 game season to win all of their home games. Betis almost came back into the game. They got a penalty, a very dodgy penalty after a check from the referee on the screen. Gavi on Isco, which Isco converted to make it 2-1. But João Cancelo, who'd moved up to left wing in the second half, sealed the points with a great finish from just outside the area. There was no goal for Lewandowski on his send-off. He had one chance. It came after Cancelo's goal. He was fed the ball by Pedri, spun and fired wide, and that was pretty much it. He came off a few minutes later to a standing ovation. The players all raced over to embrace him, to hug him. Joan Garcia as well, racing out from the area to join in the embrace of Lewandowski, and then he slowly left the pitch. Fans have been chanting his name all game. They continued to chant his name after he'd gone off. He kept coming out of the dugout while the game was coming on and waving and touching the badge. And then after the game he gave a little speech. He spoke about, obviously, like Tony said, some of the emotions he'd felt, how difficult it had been in terms of leaving the club, making this decision, deciding to leave. But Rick, the overriding feeling is, despite all of that, and we'll come on to his legacy, it probably is the right moment for Lewandowski to leave the club. His contract up in the summer. His role has changed significantly this season in terms of he's no longer a guaranteed starter. He's been alternating with Ferran Torres. Still scoring goals when he's played, 13 in La Liga, 18 in all competitions, despite reduced minutes. If he played more, he probably would have over 20, as he has done in his previous 3 seasons at Barca. But the decision to go now saw him leave with that reception that he had, the admiration that he had from the fans, as opposed to perhaps the risk of overstaying his welcome for another year.
Yeah. I think it's time. I mean, I was saying in January, maybe February, that Lewandowski seemed washed, and maybe it sounds a little bit harsh. I mean, 18 goals is pretty solid, but beyond the numbers, it's kind of obvious that he's well beyond the peak of his powers, even his Barca peak, let alone his Bayern peak. And it makes sense to go out while you're still loved, while you haven't caused the team too many problems, while it's been a successful season, while you can leave with the trophy, while the atmosphere is good. I mean, I'm sure he would have loved to stay to win the Champions League. If Barca go and win the Champions League next season, I'm sure there'll be a part of Lewandowski that's thinking, why didn't I just stay one more year? Why couldn't I have stayed and won the Champions League? But I mean, what we were saying earlier with Tony, which is a funny Tony phrase, by the way. Feelings are not just for poor people; they're for rich people too. It belongs in the pantheon of great Tony quotes on the pod. As beyond the feelings of having to leave your home and set up somewhere new and everything like that, I think it's also that Lewandowski's feeling has come from this feeling that time has caught up with him. That watching him on the pitch, especially in that period before he scored against Newcastle, in that run of games where he was really, really struggling. I mean, you could see his morale was on the floor, and that never really happened to him at Barca in any of the 4 years before that, and I'm sure it didn't happen at Bayern either. And I think that maybe those are the moments where he kind of realises that his race is run at the top level.
Yeah, that was the feeling I had around then. I know we spoke about it a lot, but there was perhaps the first time. There had been times, we perhaps glamorised completely his 4 years. There had been spells and times, probably from even in the second half of his first season, but in the second season when obviously Barca went trophyless and Xavi Hernandez would have been open to him leaving at the end of the season, etc., where the feeling was he wasn't contributing massively to the team, but he was always scoring. He always looked like if you give him a chance, he will score. But like you say, before the Newcastle game, there was that run this year where it looked like for the first time, certainly at Barcelona, perhaps in his entire career, thinking to him at Bayern and Borussia Dortmund, I obviously can't comment before when he played in Poland, that he looked like a striker without confidence. I did think, and I remember speaking with Tony about it after that Newcastle game, that perhaps those 2 goals, he looked, once he got that first goal against Newcastle, which was a bit grubby, that maybe the confidence would come flooding back, but it didn't quite happen for him in the end of the season either. And perhaps that was not a confidence thing, that was just confirmation that, like you say, whether it's his body, whether it's mentally, whether something just doesn't quite have that what he had previously over there, which is normal. He's 38 in August. Tony, despite all of that, I don't know if you have any insight into how difficult this was for Lewandowski. Obviously, Barcelona would have been prepared to keep him, or potentially prepared to keep him on a much reduced salary for an additional season. Obviously, his agent Pini Zahavi's tied in with Flick, with Laporta. Do you think this decision was not easy in terms of, obviously we know the emotional pull and everything for Lewandowski, but in terms of a football level, he saw it clearly that it was time to go?
Yes, I can give you some insights. Well, I'm happy because all the parts, and when I say all the parts, I want to say basically Lewandowski and Hansi Flick have managed to close this period on the best possible way. And when I say this, I want to say that if you check the video yesterday after the substitution, when Lewandowski leaves the pitch, look the hug that he has with Hansi Flick. Look it again, and then you can tell me what you see. And what you see is what it is. If you look the video, you will see that there is a cold hug. That's why I say I'm happy, because the reality is that the last weeks, the last months between both have not been easy. Don't forget that Flick is a little bit in the middle. They have both the same agent. So it has been a difficult situation, no? So I'm happy that at the end, at least, even if there are reproaches, ¿cómo es? Reproches?
Some like criticism, maybe?
Well, reproches like, hey, you did this, no, but you did this.
Kind of accusations.
Well, okay, even if both sides have accusations for the other, and the feeling is not the same that they had at the beginning, sorry for saying this, but it's the truth. At the end, when the rope, cuerda es rope, no?
Rope.
The rope. When the rope was about to break between them, they managed to say, okay, let's stop it. Let's, for all what we have lived, let's do it on a decent way. So I'm happy that they solved it. Well, not solved it, as I say, the love is not anymore there between them. But they managed to do it on a formal way, with Robert not criticizing to no one, with Hansi Flick also praising Lewandowski. This for me has been the most interesting thing. There are also other details that I can tell you, is that everybody knows that the relationship with Lamine and Lewandowski or Gavi was not the best at the beginning. The truth is that Lewandowski, in the last months, when he understood that more or less his period was coming to an end, instead of acting like Gundogan, instead of trying to say, you have to respect me, he has accepted that he was not anymore the king of the dressing room. It's like, more or less, he gave the crown to Lamine instead of role model in the dressing room. And even if they are not going to go never to have a dinner together, for example, the fact that yesterday Lamine made a story on Instagram saying that Lewandowski is a legend, shows that in the last months, their relationship have improved 2,000%. And now maybe because they all knew that he was going to leave, maybe. But it's been romantic the way the dressing room have managed these last months of Lewandowski, and I would say that there is now more union than ever with them. And then tell me, Rick.
No, yeah, I was going to say I wasn't overly surprised at the start when Lamine comes in at 15 years old, and Lewandowski's more than twice as old as him, and obviously the vibes are so different between them. Lamine, sort of this youngster, TikToker, all the stuff that comes with it, and Lewandowski, kind of this.
Hang on a minute.
Professional.
Hang on a minute. I'm not having the TikToker thing. Robert Lewandowski was the ultimate TikToker. Do you not remember his dance? Do you not remember his dances during the pandemic and all the TikToking he started doing?
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true.
So you can strip that accusation, please. I don't even know if Lamine has a TikTok account.
No,
Lewandowski's the TikToker here. Take it back.
I don't mean a literal TikToker. I mean it in the descriptive sense of the word. The Lamine is this young guy with just a totally different vibe and lifestyle to Lewandowski, who's sort of this, as Flick has said, an ultra professional, and it can seem a bit colder, I think, Robert Lewandowski. And so, yeah, I'm not surprised that they didn't get on. But I agree with what Tony said. And even Lewandowski said, I'm not going to chat and play with Lamine until he's an adult. He said at one point, until he's 18 or something. Yeah, I'm not hugely surprised by that. And I think Tony's completely right in that as Lewandowski's seen the lie of the land, he's certainly calmed a bit or become a bit less tense, a bit less sort of in his ways and more open.
A professional respect between them. And like you say, I think that's one of the things when we discuss Lewandowski's legacy, he should be praised for. I wrote about this, something that's been mentioned by a few people as well. Obviously, there was that famous, I think it was against Alaves, maybe November 2023, when Lewandowski sort of threw his arms up and there was a gesture, which was obviously made a lot of in the press at the time when Lamine didn't pass to him or something like that. But he learned to, like Tony said, he learned to accept a different status in the dressing room while continuing to deliver on the pitch, which certain other players, Cristiano Ronaldo, for example, would probably have struggled to accept or would not have accepted. And ultimately, and it comes back to the Flick point as well, it's little things like that which bought Lewandowski more time at Barcelona, which is a club which he says was his dream club. Judging by how he's speaking, and I don't know if he's fallen into recency bias, it sounds like it's been the best 4 years of his career. Obviously at Bayern Munich, he won the Champions League with Flick. He won, I think it was 8 Bundesliga titles in a row, scored ridiculous amounts of goals. But the way he speaks about Barcelona and the warmth he has for Catalonia and the suggestion that he will live, whether in Catalonia or in Mallorca when he retires, makes it sound like this has been the most significant sort of moment of his career for him and his family. And those 2 years, regardless of whether there's been a cooling of the relationship with Flick or those extra 2 years, have been bought in part, obviously, because of Laporta and Deco and the squad planning, but by Flick, because there's another scenario where perhaps, potentially, and it's one of those things that probably not, because maybe Pini Zahavi always had all the power with Lewandowski, who had a contract, but another scenario where he does move on in the summer of 2024 because Xavi doesn't want him and Barca look to make money in another way. So yeah, no, all of those things to his credit.
I also wanted to discuss the other less romantic part, which has not been maybe explained, and is that it has been difficult period also for Lewandowski's camp, because it has been leaked in media speech that it was not the reality. It was leaked in Mundo Deportivo that Lewandowski had an offer with a salary reduction and he had to decide, and it was not true. What has happened, and when I say this, I want to make it clear that this is not opinion, this is information. I always want to make it clear. In this case, it's 100% like this. Even if Laporta said he wanted Lewandowski to extend, the truth is that in several meetings with his agent, the club has not presented any formal offer, which for me is a little bit a lack of respect, no? Because imagine that in your job they tell you that, yeah, we want to extend you in ESPN or in AFP, in all the meetings you have, yeah, we want to extend you, but there is never a concrete offer for you. Not even, I'm not saying about salary, not even a offer in a paper. Not even saying you will get €1. Nothing. Just a proposal, you know? What I want to tell you is that it's a lack of respect. Lewandowski wanted to stay, to be honest, I think. But the club tried to make him tired of waiting. So the club invited him to say, okay, the message is that they really don't want to extend me. But if it's like this, why just saying to him, yeah, we think it's better to leave? That's the point that has been a little bit dirty in all these talks last months. For one side saying, yeah, we want you to stay, we want you to stay 1 year, but then no offer. The club was willing for Robert to take the step to say, I'm leaving. So for me, it's not a brave situation for a legend. It's better to have a meeting, hey, we think it's over, better to leave. But when you leak to the media and Laporta says we want him to stay, and then you make no offer, for me this is no fair play. This is like when you want to break a relationship with your boyfriend or girlfriend, but instead of breaking, you start cheating, making lack of respect until the other one is tired and leaves you. No, for me this is not elegant, and the club has not been elegant with this. That's why I started saying that I'm happy that despite all these things that have happened and people doesn't know, yesterday we could live what we lived.
It's classic Barca.
Because it was not all roses in the last weeks.
Seems like Barca are allergic to doing things in a nice way in terms of asking a player to leave. Maybe just Laporta doesn't have it in his wheelhouse.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've heard it all before about, saying things in public, doing things in public, and then in reality, doing things another way. Tony, you called Robert Lewandowski a legend. Is he a Barcelona legend? The 11th top goal scorer of all time, 119 goals. Let's talk a little bit about his legacy. Where does he stand for you? Obviously, we've done the strikers episode on the series we were building about Barca's sort of modern dream team. Obviously, he was behind Suarez and Eto'o in that ranking. Is that his position for you in the last sort of 30 years, or are there others around there?
Good that you asked this, Sam, because, and I'm going to be honest, I don't know exactly in which position I rated Lewandowski when we made the top 5 of strikers. I think I put him 4th or 5th, correct?
Maybe. It's funny because I don't remember either, but I'm sure, and you don't remember, and I'm sure you were absolutely certain when we did it, and now you've got no clue where he was.
No, because I think that maximum he was 5, or not even 5, I mean, maybe 4 or 5. Well, yesterday, when I was recording with my mobile the substitution, the podcast came into my head, no? And I started to feel bad. Because maybe, I have to repeat, I don't remember. I think I put him 5.
I think you said he could go up if he won the Champions League, I think you said.
Yeah. I started to feel bad because I think with the number of goals he scored, coming to a club that was destroyed, and after the farewell yesterday, I just felt bad because I think maybe we are underrating a little bit this machine of the goal, this monster of the goal, and I felt bad. I should check what I said, no, but of course not like Eto'o, not like Suarez, to be honest, but yes, close to them. If it wasn't because he never has won the Champions League for Barca, for sure. Only for this.
Yeah. Just to be clear, that's just in their times at Barca. Obviously, what he did before at Bayern has him on that level, if not ahead of them. I think Hansi Flick called him the best number 9 of the last 15 years, which I'm sure could be debated whether you put Ronaldo in there or others or whatnot, Benzema, Luis Suarez, Aguero, etc. But certainly on that level, when you look outside of Barcelona. Rik, Tony said underrated there. I've been trying to think here. The goals are undoubted. 119 goals. He's averaging 30 goals a season for the club. If he gets one more, that is 120. 11th top scorer in 4 years. what I was trying to think is how much we've glamorized this, because what Tony said, and I think I do agree with him, but just to try and sort of work out if we are overanalyzing in terms of his impact. Like Tony said, what Gavi said in his post on Instagram as well, Robert came at a time when the club were in their worst moment probably since pre-Rijkaard, possibly in the final Rijkaard years before when Guardiola came in, certainly in the last sort of 20 years, you can almost say, if not longer. And the sensation is that his signing in the summer when, you know, Barca's squad, if you go back and look at it, was really poor. The fact that he was willing to come from Bayern Munich to Barcelona was significant in terms of star pull, in terms of marketing at the time, in terms of all that side of the game, but also the weight he had initially on the dressing room in terms of leadership, impact, driving standards, etc. How important has Lewandowski been to what we can perhaps call, you know, a change at Barcelona over the last 4 years? If you look at where they are now and where they were when he signed, how much credit does he deserve for that?
Yeah, it's difficult to completely judge because obviously he's a team sport, and then you have Lamine Yamal becoming the most important player in the last 2.5 seasons, maybe even the last 3 seasons, to be honest. Because in that second season after they won the league with Xavi, Lamine, their whole team was just dependent on Lamine, even as a 16-year-old. But in that first season, when Lewandowski arrives, he's the Pichichi, he takes Barca to the title. I think it shows how important he's been too. The fact that he can be the 11th top scorer in Barca history in just 4 seasons is remarkable. That is crazy. And yeah, Lewandowski had brilliant moments, brilliant goals, helped Barca. I mean, 3 league titles in 4 years for a team that was in the, as Laporta said, in the ICU when he arrived is fantastic. And I think that, to be honest, when maybe we can't judge this until a bit further down the line when we see all the financial effects of the palancas and so on. But all those players they brought in with the palancas turned out well, and Lewandowski or Rafinha, arguably the best of them.
Yeah, I was thinking this yesterday. I was thinking, like you say, it's impossible to tell because maybe in 10 years, Barca's accounts or the next president who comes in will tell us about how the palancas were actually, on a financial level I'm speaking, you know, dreadful for the club in terms of money they've lost as a result or whatnot. But if you just base it purely on the signings they made, the contributions they've made both on the pitch and in terms of driving the standards and changing the feel around the club, all of them, look, they've had ups and downs, all of those players, the 3 that were signed for big money. But Koundé, Rafinha and Lewandowski are all still here 4 years later. They're all still pretty much, obviously Lewandowski in and out this season, a few question marks over Koundé at the end of this season, but they're all very much still starters in the 11, not just squad players. Lewandowski, I guess, the slight exception. But yeah, I think as they've gone as well as could have been expected. Tony, just focusing on Lewandowski, the fee of around 45 million for a 33-year-old. Some people questioned it at the time. Obviously, the salary has been big as well. For a while, the biggest salary at Barcelona. But it looks like money well spent, despite, like we've touched on, the Champions League is the one thing still missing. But in terms of what Lewandowski, the impact he's had on the club and the goals he scored, it's proven a good piece of business, no?
Pues sí. La verdad es que sí. The truth is that, yes, I made numbers yesterday. 26 goals first season, 42 goals. No, sorry.
33 in the first season.
Sorry, 33, then 18, no,
26.
Then 26, then 42, and then 18. This is an average of 30 goals per season, 29.75 goals per season. So you cannot say nothing else apart from saying that it's been brilliant. Of course, the problem is, or the truth is that Barca would have never signed Lewandowski because normally this kind of signing was the one that Barca was selling, like when Barca sold Rivaldo or Ronaldinho. But when you don't have the position of power in terms of money, at the end, Lewandowski was one of the best options, immediate performance. It was a big impact, but not even the goals are the biggest contribution of Lewandowski, in my opinion. Because at the end, Lewandowski was kind of, I imagine there is a bridge between 2 parts. And the club had problems of fair play, of money, and to survive, to reach the other part of the road, which is these better periods that are reaching now, you needed to build a bridge. No? And Lewandowski was kind of the rocks of the stones of a bridge to avoid the total implosion of the club. Because at that moment, if he was not coming, if you weren't able to save a little bit that difficult moment with 2-3 good signings, with Xavi that league that you won, this made the club to remain alive. No? So Lewandowski was kind of essential extra oxygen before being back to the life. So it's been more than decent. Extremely perfect signing for 50 million euros. Of course, it was not his prime. We have to admit it also. It was not his prime. But this tells us how big this player has been. No? Even if coming out of his prime, he managed to score 30 goals per year.
Yeah. And there's
just one question, Rick. What would have happened if he had came before? No?
Yeah. And there's only 3 years in which Lewandowski had scored more goals than last season. 42 last season. He scored 55, 50 and 43 in 3 of his Bayern seasons. But last season was the 4th top.
Incredible. Sí.
Rick, any favourite Lewandowski moments, standout moments? I always think back, not one specific moment. I always just think that when he first came, I remember the impact he had before the World Cup. There were 18 goals in 19 games before he got sent off at Osasuna. And he was never quite the same after the World Cup. But just his start, I just remember being impacted by his sort of leadership, his obviously his goal scoring as well. Obviously, I think we had Tony on the podcast every week singing Robert Lewandowski to the Flintstones theme tune because it was big. We hadn't heard it for a while, but obviously it was out in force on Sunday against Real Betis. But then probably I think just because 24-25 was such a fun season, obviously a lot of good memories of him from that season. You think to his 2 goals at the Bernabeu in the 4-0 were brilliant. The header and the early finish from, I don't know if it's just outside the box or the edge of the box. Also the goal at Atletico Madrid from almost sort of from nowhere that only he can score in that Barca team really. It's kicked off a comeback. After Atletico had just made it 2-0, the finish there was incredible. Even this season in the Supercopa when he scored in stoppage time, just the take and the finish from Pedri's pass when Barca beat Real Madrid, of course. So many sort of big goals in big moments and in big games. And that's the thing, beyond the numbers, there have been so many important goals as well.
Yeah. Just with Lewandowski, I think it's kind of hard to pick out individual moments because he was just so repetitive and effective, and that's where his strength comes from. And the fact that he just gets so many goals. I mean, I think 2023 Super Cup against Real Madrid, that's like an important moment for Barca because it's the first trophy that Xavi wins, and so the sort of launching pad for the team to go on and win the title that season. He scores and he sets up a goal in that game. So maybe that he scored a goal against Mallorca that for some reason I always think to, like from low outside the box. I think it was 1-0 that game.
I remember it. Yeah,
that was a good goal, and I think it earned Barca that win, which was important. I think those. Yeah, I don't really have that many sort of individual moments, to be honest, from Lewandowski, because often his goals are sort of poacher's goals. He's in the box. He's a killer in the box.
But his job is. Yeah, but I mean, there are good ones. Like I said, the ones that I've mentioned in those big games were good. The Mallorca one was good. There have been ones which have been really sort of good finishes. Yeah, and the Clasico ones, like you say, 4-0. I mean, maybe that will go down as his best memories of Barca, that game. Yeah. Tony, final one for you. Well, I guess we'll reflect quickly on his future, but nothing decided yet. But just in terms of the back to the send-off, back to the start, so much warmth from the Barcelona fans. I mean, it probably covers a little bit of everything we've spoken about, but maybe also the sort of affection he's shown for Barcelona and Catalonia, because we've probably seen players who have, I don't know if the right way to say it, who have done more for the club, but who've been at the club longer, attract either similar levels of emotion or even less levels of emotion from the fans. I mean, it was quite sort of eye-catching yesterday, at Camp Nou. The amount of chants and support and affection that was shown for Lewandowski from the fans. Despite everything we've said, that's not always the case. You don't always get a send-off like that, do you?
When he arrived in Barcelona, he was a little bit, not sad, but saying that in München he was respected but not admirado, como es
admired or loved, you can say.
Okay, but not admired. And the truth is that the first day that Lewandowski played in Camp Nou, the first day that people started singing his name from his camp, they already were saying that he received much love from Camp Nou in one day that in Bayern in 4 years, or I don't know how many years he was there.
Yeah, a lot. 7.
At the end, the context always matters. No, people appreciate that Lewandowski is a legend. Also, it was a nice moment after winning La Liga, so the tempo sometimes is very important. And yeah, it's funny, that at the end, when you have a farewell like this, you become even bigger legend than you are. That's why farewell matters, because at the end it's going to be the last memory of someone. Some people like Messi, it's funny, some people like Messi, they never had that moment. And Lewandowski, let's say, not joking, but understand me, a foreigner that came on the last period of his career left as a hero, no? Sometimes also I think that football is unfair, no? In terms of Lewy deserved it, but obviously others gave much more to Barca and they didn't have a farewell. Well, you cannot have everything. Others have Ballon d'Or. Lewandowski was stolen a Ballon d'Or in 2020. But he lives with this tribute yesterday that he will never forget. Others have Ballon d'Ors, but never could have the farewell from Barca.
It's interesting sort of coincidence that at the same time this was happening, Antoine Griezmann was having his farewell at Atletico Madrid. And there was even a moment in that where Griezmann was saying that, we didn't win a Liga with him and there at the club, and we didn't win a Champions League, but this farewell was worth the trophy. So kind of a nice parallel with that Ballon d'Or comment from Toni.
Yeah.
Griezmann also apologising again for joining Barca.
Yeah, I mean, correctly.
And yes.
I mean...
And people have... No, go.
It made me, sad that he just... I was one of his biggest detractors or critics at Barca. And at Atletico, I loved Griezmann, both before he went to Atletico and also in the last few seasons since he's been back. He's been brilliant. It's just a shame it didn't work out at Barca because, for various reasons. Obviously, we've talked about it. We don't need to analyse it now. But obviously, Messi being there, Coutinho being there, too many players for the same position. But also, I think mentally, just never had the right mindset to succeed at Barca. Whereas at Atletico, he was just so comfortable.
Well, no, I was just going to say that for me, it's nice to listen Griezmann apologising. For me, it's nice. People, I've read in social media people saying he attacked Barca. No. He was transparent, honest, and I totally agree with him. It was a bad decision of Barca because on that moment, Griezmann had to be the leader of new Barca. I'm really saying what I think. He didn't receive the love that he needed in Barcelona. He would have been a great leader. Apart from this, it's another discussion, no? Because he was living in the pitch in the same position of Messi, no? So maybe if you had Messi, you didn't need to sign Griezmann, but in terms of quality, his performance last years have shown that it was not, for me, not related with, especially with him, not even with his mentality. I don't agree with Rik. Just that he was on a destroyed team, and when you play in a destroyed team, it's very complicated to perform. Look what he did when he was back to Atletico again.
Yeah. The quirk with Griezmann, like you say, was you almost wanted to give him the keys to the team. And then when Messi finally does leave, obviously also financially influenced, he then returns to Atletico as well, just when you perhaps potentially could have given him the keys to the team.
Yes.
Just to finish on Lewandowski then, just a quick answer. Where do you expect him to end up, Rik? Saudi Arabia, MLS, Europe? He's been linked with Italian teams, with Porto. Porto have said they can't afford his wages. I would guess it's going to be outside of Europe.
Yeah, I think it's at the start of the season he was saying, he could see himself playing in Europe for many more years, like 4 more years or something crazy. I think the events of this season probably have changed his mind on that. I mean, maybe Italy, but no, if I had to bet, I would bet MLS. I mean, I don't know. Obviously, Saudi Arabia can pay a lot of money, but it's not really a great time to go to Saudi Arabia. So I would guess MLS.
Tony, where's Lewandowski going?
I don't know, but for sure it's going to be an exotic league. Maybe I would say between Saudi and MLS, maybe MLS more than Saudi. And maybe in the following days, not weeks, days, we can find out, possibly.
One more game to go for Robert Lewandowski as a Barcelona player. They travel to Valencia next week to finish the season, and he will get the chance to take his goal tally to 120 and move into the top 10, level with Josep Escola if he gets one more goal. 2 goals would take him 10th outright. Top 10 is a nice mark, isn't it? So good luck to him at Mestalla.
Never heard of Josep Escola. Tony can educate me after the pods.
I don't think Tony would have done. He was born in 1914.
Okay.
He's the oldest player in the top 10.
Giuseppe Escola.
We all need to go to Escola to find out about him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The season winding down then, but the podcast not. We'll reflect on Barcelona's season at some point on Patreon, whether this week or next week after the Valencia game. Also the Sporting Director episode to come, where we plan Barcelona's summer like the excellent sporting directors that we are. So join us over on Patreon this week and through the summer. And in the meantime, stay positive.